Okay. So I'll just briefly recollect the first and second session, then I'll start today's session, third session. So in the first session, you can go through the recording. Uh, like what is Linux? Linux is an open source operating system. So open source means the source code of this Linux, which is designed by Linus Torvald, is freely available over the internet, which anybody can access and modify. That's why we have so many flavors. We have so many flavors in Linux. So out of that, most commonly used flavor is Red Hat. So we are going to discuss this course using the RHEL 7 through the CentOS 7. What is CentOS means? Now the Red Hat is being taken over by the IBM, and they are releasing their OS free of cost still, but under the IBM, and they are charging to provide the support. So some people who are working like a Linux expert, not now, earlier only, they held the talk with the Red Hat people when it was an individual company, not under the IBM. So they convinced them their idea is, their whole aim is to spread the Linux. So for that purpose, some people who are working in different companies as a Linux expert, one form one association, and they convinced to the Red Hat company that their intention is to spread the Linux. So they also felt they are genuine about that. So they are not doing any business or any profit. They are just purely spreading the Linux. So for that purpose, whenever Red Hat releases their OS, they are giving that source code to the CentOS. So exact same thing they are releasing. So now companies mostly are using 7. So that's why we are going to discuss 7. With same command, you can work on 9 also, latest one, and the 8. So we are like mostly the servers stable on 7. So if you work on 7, you can work on 8 also as well as 9 also. Okay. So I'll be sharing you one file. As I said you earlier also, in this, I kept all the practical step from first day to last day. So once you do the payment, I'll be just sharing you on your mail ID this file. Through that, you can do the practicals quite easily. All the like steps will be there with heading in the notepad file, what we have to do, everything. So this is over. Then I went to the 2 files I have made, because this course is divided into 2 parts, standalone and network admin. So standalone, one theory file I have kept. This is for theory file. So here I just gone through this. Linux is an open source. So this Linux OS main program, or the Linux operating system. Any operating system is a collection of programs. Same way Linux also. So it is logically divided into 2 levels, shell and kernel. So shell will check command is correct or not, the user have the privilege or not. Once it is privilege is also there, command is correct means it will convert that from command which is written in high level to the binary and send it to the kernel. Kernel will decide this particular task should be done by which hardware. So mostly it will be done by processor. It will send to that, then it will do the output. So output will be in binary format. So it will send it to the, I'm just revising it. It will be sending to the output. The kernel will send to the shell. It will again convert it back to the high level and displays on the monitor. So shell is the security which will allow only known commands to run, not the unknown command. And whereas in Windows, anything can be executed. So this I already explained in first session. Then the course content also I gone through. So is it required to explain the course content or not required? Please, both of you tell me. I'm just waiting for your reply. Course content you required? Okay. So I'll just briefly give the idea. So this course is divided into 2 parts, standalone and network admin. So in standalone, we are going to start with what? Introduction of Linux. Like what is Linux? Just now I told you, Linux is an operating system. Which type of operating system? It is an open source operating system. The main feature in Linux is it is an open source operating system. Open source means the source code of the Linux operating system or Linux kernel main part, which is designed by Linus Torvald of Finland country. So whatever code he is designed, he put it over the internet. It is free also, but open source means generally the whoever designed the OS, they will not show their coding or the program what they have written. But this person, Linus Torvald, whatever coding and program he has written to design the Linux kernel, he put it over the internet, which anybody can access and modify. So that is called open source. Is it clear? So I repeat, open source means the source code of the Linux kernel, which is designed by Linus Torvalds. So he himself put it over the internet, which anybody can access. Not only it can be accessed by anyone, but also can be modified. Because of that, Linux is called open source operating system. That is the reason we have so many flavors, which is not possible in other. So can we see the source code of other OS? No, it is there only in Linux. So that's why we have so many flavor. Out of that, most commonly used flavor is Red Hat. So we are going to discuss RHEL7 Red Hat through the CentOS. Like just now I told you, everything will be same source code, command, everything. Only one difference, in Red Hat they are charging, but they'll provide technical support. In CentOS, it is completely free, but no support. So since we are using this for training purpose, so we'll be using RHEL7 through the CentOS 7. Then the structure, which I explained in the last class, where exactly, sorry, this was not over. The structure is not over. So we'll be discussing structure, where exactly what data stores. So once you understand this, you can able to operate the Linux. Then after that, we'll be doing installation, how to install the Linux OS. After understanding the structure of the Linux OS. Then we will be discussing the basic commands. So here I just written basic commands, but in these basic commands, we will be discussing starting from scratch, like how to log in, how to open the terminal. Like in Windows, to apply command, you have to open command prompt, here terminal. Then how we can check in which directory we are by using pwd, how to change our directory by cd, how to check the content ls, like all basic commands. Then we'll be discussing in basic command how to create the file using cat, touch, and vi editor. And then after that, we'll be discussing how to create single directory, multiple parental directory by using mkdir. So once we know how to create files and directory, we'll be discussing how we can copy the files and directory. Then after that, how we can rename the files and directory. And finally, how to delete the files and directory. All these things we'll discuss in basic command, which may take minimum 3 to 4 days. Okay. After that, we will be focusing on what is soft link and hard link, how to create it, what is the difference. Then after that, we'll be discussing the booting process. In every interview, they will ask minimum 1 to 2 questions. You go as a fresher or after any number of years of experience. So booting process means loading of the OS from the hard disk to booting process means loading of the Linux OS from the hard disk to RAM. So once the OS is loaded from the hard disk to RAM, because whenever you install any OS, the OS will be stored in the storage device, that is hard disk. So once you power on your machine, the OS has to be loaded from the hard disk to RAM. Once the OS is completely loaded into RAM, then only you'll get the login screen. So in the Linux, the OS will get loaded into RAM in 6 stages. So what are those 6 stages? We'll discuss them in detail. Starting with what? The first stage will be BIOS, second MBR, third grub, fourth kernel, fifth init level, target also it is called, sixth run level. So all these things we'll discuss in detail. Along with that, there are again in run level 6 run level. So in each run level, one specific task will be done. So in which run level, what happens? We'll discuss that also. So that knowledge will help us. So once we understand the booting process, we can able to visualize, understand once we power on in the background what happens. Then after that, we will start the administration part. So one of the job of administrator is to create the user account. To create the user account. So we'll be discussing as admin how to create the user account, where the user information will be stored in the user database file. So before we start user administration, I also here I have not written, but I also discussing how to open the database file with filtering command like cat, head, tail, grep. All these things we'll discuss so that once we come to the user administration, you will be knowing how to open the database file with the filtering command as per our requirement, like cat, head, tail, grep, sed. All these filtering commands we'll be discussing. Then we'll open the user database file, and then we will try to manage the users as per the company requirement by making the changes in the user database file like etc passwd and shadow file. Then we'll be also knowing how to delete the user account in use. Because as an administrator, you should know how to create the account of the employees or user because users cannot create their account. It has to be created by admin. So how to create, we'll see that in user administration. Along with where their information will be stored, how we can modify as admin the user's information as per the company requirement. And if a user left the company, how to delete his account. So this will be discussed in user administration. After that, we will be discussing group administration. So what is a group? Group is a collection of users. So group is created for what purpose? Group is created to apply same permission to multiple users. So whenever in an organization, as many employees will be there. So out of many employees, a particular employees for a particular file or directory should be given same permission. For that, what you will do? You will create a group, add those users who need same permission into the group, then we'll apply the permission on the group so that all the users who are in that group will get same permission. So first we'll see in the group how to create group, how to add multiple users, single user, how to make group admin, where the group information will be stored. This we'll discuss in group administration. So after that topic, we'll be in a position to create users and group. Then we will see how to control the users or the employees by applying permissions. So in Linux, we have three types of permission policies. So we'll be discussing how to apply the permission on users and group by using three types of permission policies. What are they? Basic file permission. First, we'll discuss how to apply permission using basic file permission using categories wise, owner, group owner, and others. So if you want read, write, execute, that is the access level. Then after that, we'll be discussing how to apply the different permission to different users, which we can't do through the basic file permission. So to apply different permission to different users, we'll be using what? ACL, access control list, to apply different permission to different users and different group. Then after that, we'll be discussing advanced file permission, which is also called special permission. Again, in the advanced file permission, three special permissions are there: set UID, set GID, and sticky bit. All three will be discussing. After that, the first part, after this topic, the first part will be over in standalone. Second part, disk management. That is how to manage the hard disk. For that, we have to create a partition. So how to create a normal partition and access the partition by using directory called mounting with the directory, and how to do permanent mounting. This will do. After that, LVM, logical volume manager, very important concept in Linux, through which we can combine multiple partition or multiple hard disks into a single storage space to do the resizing of file system space by using PV, physical volume, LV, logical volume, VG. The sequence order will be PV, VG, LV. So once we create these three component, LVM is created through which we can do resizing, increasing of the file system space that we'll see in LVM. After that, a logical memory swap, how to increase the logical memory through which the system performance can be improved. That we'll discuss in LVM. And then we'll discuss RAID level, software RAID, to store the data in multiple disks so that if one of the disks get failed, other will have saved data. Using RAID level 5, we will configure software RAID by discussing 0, 1, and 5 level. After that, the we'll be discussing as admin, most important job is preventing the data loss. So how to prevent the data loss? By taking the backup. So we'll be discussing how to take the backup using first dump command, through which you have three types of backup in dump command. First day, full backup. Then as the companies will have some cycle, backup cycle like 15 days, 1 month. So like if it is a 1 month, first day will take full backup. Remaining 29 days, you will take incremental backup. So on the last day, you will add all the incremental backup by using differential backup. So then the complete backup will be full backup plus differential backup that we'll be discussing. After that, we'll discuss how to take the backup by compressing the data with the help of the tar command using gunzip tool. Like in Windows, bins are here, gunzip using tar command. Then how to take the backup, normal backup with CPI. After that, we'll be discussing scheduling of jobs, how to do that same task at a particular time using AT and cron tab, both like how to create file, how to create a user, how to take the backup at so and so time using AT and cron tab. So with this, disk management will be over. Then whatever task running in our computer, we can check similar to like task manager using the process management. In that we have many commands. So as per our syllabus, we'll be discussing two commands, PS and top, because these are commonly used commands to check whatever task is running, and whichever task is not required, we need to kill them, terminate it. So how to do that with PS as well as top command we'll be discussing. So with this, the first part standalone will be over. Then we'll move to the network admin part, where we will be first starting with how to install the application using RPM and yum for .rpm extension application, which will be same for Red Hat and CentOS. So to use the yum command, you have to configure yum server. We'll see that also, how to configure yum server and then install the .rpm extension application using RPM and yum. Then we will see how to assign the IP address, temporary and permanent. Then we'll see for sharing of the data. We have Linux. In Linux, three types of servers. Second part, network admin, configuration of servers. So for that, first we should know how to install the application that we will be discussing in package management using RPM and yum. So once we know how to install the application, we'll see how to assign the IP. After that, now we'll be in a position to configure servers. So for sharing of the data in Linux, we have three types of services: FTP server, NFS server, Samba server. FTP can share any type of file on any OS, but files, not directory. So to do sharing of files and directory, we can use NFS, but that will work only from Linux to Linux, not other OS. If you want to do sharing from Linux to Windows, Windows to Linux, because mostly these two OS will be used. So we have Samba server. How to configure that also we'll see. Then after that, we'll be discussing how we can configure the DNS server, which can resolve name into IP, IP to name, which can be used to access the servers or website by name. Then we will be discussing after DNS how to host the website with Apache web server, which can be accessed by name using DNS. Then finally, we'll be discussing DHCP server, which will assign IP to all the clients. Along with that, we'll be also seeing how to take the remote desktop using SSH. Telnet is nowadays nobody is using because it is not secure. So we'll use SSH. Then how to copy the data from one machine to another by SC. So this is your total course content, which will be about roughly 32 days to 34 days. Okay. So that is about your this course content. So did you got some idea now? What are the topics which will be covered in this course, which is a combination of all the topics of RSCSA, Red Hat Certified System Associate, plus some topics which is required in the industry or real-time environment. So you got the idea? Uh, so now here, our next topic will be file system, where exactly what data will be stored. So you want me to start this today? Like you are asking one common question. Command will be same in every Linux. See, the architecture and structure will be same. So I explained this in the first session. So what happens? We have so many flavors. So suppose you are learning on Red Hat at CentOS. Commands will be same in Red Hat and Linux. But suppose if you are using Debian, one of the flavor, there some commands might be same, but some command might be not supporting for a particular task. So at that time, I told you one example in first recording, you can see. Suppose if you know car driving, example, Maruti 800. After few years, you purchase Tata Sumo, bigger car. So do you need to learn learning car driving again? No. Some features here and there will be different. Yes. So if you drive few days, you'll get adjusted. Same way, you have to be good with any one flavor. So some commands might be same, but some command may not support in one flavor from one flavor to another. So in that case, what the people will do or what they are doing. So suppose you are doing one task, you know the command for Red Hat. Now you are using your company Debian. You gave that command for that task. Now it is not working, command not found. So what the people are doing, they'll just Google it, equivalent command. So for that, you should know the command in one flavor. If you know in Red Hat, suppose example, you just type it, the command equivalent of so and so in Debian, you'll get it. You type it, you'll get it. So if you have decided you will learn all the flavor, then you do the job means your whole life will be over. So if you learn one flavor, the architecture structure will be same. Your concept will be same. Some command will be same, some will be different. Like I told you for the example for the car. So nobody can learn all flavors. If you're good with one flavor, you can work on any flavor. Is it clear? Okay. Uh, did you understood? Sidhu, you also clear?
Sir,
Okay, so now in the remaining time, want me to explain what is shell, what is kernel, or you want me to go to the next topic, file system, where we can understand the structure of the Linux OS. So which topic you want me to continue? Next topic. Both of you are okay up to this?
yes.
Okay, so let me start the file system. So first, let us try to understand the structure of the Windows, because most of us commonly familiar with Windows OS because it is easy to operate. So let's first discuss the Windows structure. What is its advantage and what is its disadvantage? After that, we'll start the structure of Linux. Suppose this is the machine. So suppose this is the machine. This is the machine, like most people will do. Suppose in this machine also, we have installed, suppose, Windows OS. So once you install the Windows OS, where the Windows OS will be there? Windows OS will be there in the C drive. So drive is so in how many drives this OS will be installed? In a single drive. So drive is a collection of folders. So in the C drive, the Windows OS will be there in the form of some folders. So here we'll discuss some important folders. So one of the important folder is under the C drive, Windows. So if you go inside the Windows folder, there will be subfolders like System32, which contain system information, log files, where we can see the user activities, temporary files, drivers. So like this, folders will be there under the Windows, which is related with the system information. Now you have one more folder under the C drive called program files, program file, which contain all installed application, all installed application in program file. So whenever we install any application in Windows, where it will be installed? In the program files. So program file contain all installed application. Now we have a folder also with the name called in Windows users. Earlier it used to be document setting, but now the name is being given users. So under users, you will have different folders, like whatever users are there for each and every user, a folder will be there with their name. So for administrator, a folder will be there for the administrator folder. In C drive users, a folder will be there with the name administrator. So this administrator folder contain administrator created files and directory. So when admin login and create any files and directory, where it will be stored in Windows? C drive users administrator folder. Same way, admin has created one user, so suppose U1. So once a user is created, one folder will be created with the username. So suppose a admin is created a user with what name? U1. So a folder with the name U1 will be created in users. So now if I log in as a user and create some files and directory as a U1, so U1 created data will be stored in U1 folder. Same way, we have a user called U2 created. Who can create the users? Only admin. So admin created now user 2. Now user 2 has logged in and created some files and directory. So user 2 created data will be stored in a folder called U2 folder under the C drive. So once a user is created, its folder with that same name of a user will be created. So now what happens once that user creates any files and folder, inside that folder of that user, the data will be stored. So with this, what is the advantage? It is very simple structure and very easy to understand and easy to operate. But in this, the drawback is, suppose in Windows, all the files will be there with execute permission. And in Windows, and, and in Windows, what happens? It is easy to operate, but the OS will be installed in a single partition. And in Windows, there is no security layer like shell. In Linux, we have the shell. So what happen whenever any user execute any command? So shell will first check that command is there in the predefined. The vendor has given that or not. If it is not there, that command will not be executed. It will say command not found. So if suppose some users or some unknown person send one virus file in Windows environment. So user unknowingly is trying to run that file. He don't know that file contain virus. So he run that. So in Windows, you can run that file. And there is no security shell. There is no security layer like shell in Windows. So user unknowingly, if any virus file is there, without knowing, if they execute, it will run and whole OS will be corrupted. But if such file is being sent to Linux machines, a user here also unknowingly try to execute, will it run? No. The shell will check that command is there in predefined command or not. If it is not there, it will not allow the user to run, and it will not have execute permission to the user to run the file. And if you try to have the file execute permission also, if you try to run also, if it is not there in the predefined commands, it will not run. So that's why in Linux, the virus cannot enter. Are you following? So one of the important disadvantage or the biggest drawback here is, suppose here one of the user got affected with some virus. So once one of the user folder get corrupted, now this folder belong to users, so it will impact users folder. Now user folder belong to where? Everything is a single drive. So now the user folder belong to C drive. So once one of the folder get corrupted, it will affect the main folder. Now once the main folder get affected, now this main folder belong to C drive. So the C drive will get affected. Entire OS will be lost or get corrupted. So that is the problem in the Windows setup. So do you have such problem in Linux? No. So Windows OS can be installed on single partition. And in Windows, everything is accessed with a drive letter. But in Linux, we don't have any drive letter concept. Everything in Linux will be stored on the directory. Everything will be stored in the directory. Or everything in Linux will be accessed through the directory. In Windows, everything is based on or accessed through the drive letter. Whereas in Linux, everything is based on directory. Everything is accessed using the directory in Linux. And Windows OS can be installed on single drive, whereas Linux OS can be installed on multiple partition. There is no drive letter here. OS can be installed on multiple partition. And this partition will be accessed in Windows through the drive letter, whereas in Linux, the partition will be accessed through the directory. Now, let us take one more example here. Now take the example of the Linux. Now here, this person in his computer, say suppose instead of Windows, he installed Linux OS. So now the architecture of the Linux OS. So first thing, in Linux, there is no drive letter. So when we install the Linux OS also get installed on the hard disk. But here, there is no drive letter. So where the Linux OS get installed? On the slash, which is called, it is not a drive, it is a directory, on the slash directory. So this slash directory is called as a root directory. What is the name given to the forward slash in Linux? Root directory. So this root directory, you should not say root, because root is a administrator account in Linux. So slash is a root directory, which contain Linux operating system. Yes, Linux operating system. So here, this is the main OS directory in Linux is Linux main OS directory slash. So this slash contain many subdirectories. This slash contain many subdirectories like slash root, which will be created by default, slash home, slash boot, like this. So many subdirectories will be created. So here slash USR, like that. So many subdirectories will be created. So these are all Linux OS subdirectories, and their name starts with slash before their name because these are the subdirectories. So these are all the subdirectories. So each subdirectory will contain some specific thing. So here, whichever subdirectory is there while installation is going on, we can create a separate partition, which we can't do in Windows. So here /home contain all users data, all users data. So here, suppose if you admin create one user, U1. So in /home, one folder will be created with U1 name. So here U1 created data will be there. Now if admin create a user 2, similar to like in Windows, how the folders will be created in users. Same way in Linux also it created, but in /home. So for each and every user, one folder will be created. But here, what is the difference? Here, we can make this /home during the installation one separate partition. So here, the users, if unknowingly or unknowingly try to run the virus file, it will not allow because not is in the predefined command. If they are working in text mode, graphically, due to some or other reason, something got corrupted, not a virus or some other issue. The file or this user folder got corrupted due to any reason. So here it will impact maximum to this /home, not entire OS. OS will be safe here because we can create Linux OS on multiple partition. So while doing the partition, whichever subfolders or subdirectory of Linux OS is important, we'll create the separate partition. So it will be a part of /, but it will have its own space. So if any subfolder get corrupted, that will impact that partition, not entire, because Linux OS can be installed on multiple partition. So that feature you don't have in Windows. So first of all, only known commands will run. The shell security is there, and the OS will be installed on multiple partitions. So much stability is there. So that is the reason most of the company servers, they run on Linux. So it may be not easy to operate as Windows, but as you spend and more time with the Linux, it will become easier and easier. Okay. So whenever we install Linux OS, these many subdirectories will be created along under the /. Under the /, these many subdirectories will be created by default. This is the diagram. So each subdirectory will have some specific thing stored. So here, what we can do while installation, whichever subdirectory is important, we can allocate them the separate partition while the installation is going on, which we can't do in Windows. So if we start this, we will not able to complete this because this is very important. So we will continue this one by one in tomorrow's session. So you will understand the structure quite well. So once you understand the structure, it will become a little bit easier to operate the Linux OS. So shall we continue this part tomorrow? Structure of the Linux OS.
Sure.
So up to this, have you understood whatever we have discussed, both of you?
Yes.
Okay. So any question, any doubt before I close today's session?
No.
Okay. So can I close the session?
Yes.
Okay. So that's it for today. Thank you. See you tomorrow. I'm closing the session.